Does that work? I start.
Please be seated.
Hello, everybody. What can I say about my brother Andrew, or Andy, as he was known to all his friends? He was the most wonderful, generous person with a great sense of public service and a wonderful sense of humour. Known as a gentle giant. Tributes have been made in the papers and online. Brian and Anne Searle and Alan Chedzoy wrote moving accounts. And I will try to add some personal words at this time. My first memory of Andrew was having a snowball fight in the garden with his friends at Hereford Road. I was too young. I was watching through the window. I was only 4, he was 8. But he was happy. He was surrounded by friends. And this is how he lived his life. Surrounded by friends. He had so many, many good friends that shared his life and his adventures. Our lives went on different pathways with the 11 plus examination, which I'm sure some of you can remember. I just passed. He just didn't. What a difference that made. Andy left school at 16 with no qualifications, let down by this flawed education system. Mark Twain once said, "No man is a failure who has friends." And by this measure, Andy's life has been a wonderful success. Leaving school, I recall he tried to join the Navy in some sort of shore-based capacity, but failed the colour blindness test. He thought he saw the right answers on a card by the machine, but alas, they were all totally wrong. But in fact, he was totally colourblind. And when he bought clothes, they were the most amazing colours, and he had to be accompanied when buying various things by mother. His orange-red suit was a superb example, I would have to say. And looking through his clothes, we couldn't find it, so obviously it's gone somewhere. He settled as a storeman at Portland Dockyard for over 30 years until its closure. But we suspect he spent more time on union business and council matters than on stores duties. As a teenager, with Mike Lee and Dave Spencer, they started dances, first at the Rock Hotel, which is just down the road, and then onto the Pavilion, as well as folk nights on the Weymouth Bell. Groups such as Pink Floyd, Hot Chocolate came to Weymouth. They booked Slade on the week that they reached #1, their first #1. At this time, there was nothing like this for young people in Weymouth to enjoy, and they packed out the venues week on week. And in a way, it was an early form of public service. And by all accounts, it certainly didn't make them any money. Andy was a man of Weymouth and dedicated his life to Weymouth. He was a councillor for 24 years. He had no edge and would give his advice and help to all political persuasions. He was so pleased to be made an honorary alderman later in life. He lived in Hereford Road since 1952, at the heart of the community he served so well. He served as a school governor, as a hospital governor, and in many charitable bodies, often in a senior capacity. In fact, it was difficult to find associations that he hadn't made during his lifetime. And one could easily say of Andrew, as one of his nieces said very recently to me, his passion for politics and community has shown us that we all have the power in this world to do the right thing, to make our communities better places. It is so desperately needed today. that type of sentiment. Andrew had many hobbies with his network of friends. The beach hut was, of course, very important to him, and he was a very generous host to anybody who popped by, particularly on carnival days. The Swanage Railway, he was an active member, and hopefully next year we will organise an event to honour his involvement in that organisation. The Friends of Upwey Station, or as he used to call it, Upwey International, was another part of his life. And he was a film extra on some films, such as Goodbye, Mr. Chips. And there he was wearing a jacket worn previously by James Robinson Justice, and he was really, really pleased to have done that. He was happiest at the beach hut or on a train. With his friends, they would leave Upwey International and travel to Fishguard or Pembroke Dock for a matter of minutes to get on the same train and come back again. It was the journey that was important to him. And with his friends, he enjoyed many holidays. One of those was a trip on Eurostar to Paris, and that was actually for more than 8 minutes, so we've been told. He had a passion for books and postcards. His postcard collection is extensive, and his books more so. Politics, railways, but also John Wayne and General MacArthur. These last two I felt was a bit strange because they are both far-right Republicans, and Andy was not far-right. When I spoke to a local book dealer, he said Andy was a wonderful customer, but the only one book he couldn't sell him was that of a biography of Mrs. Thatcher. Andy had said that was a step too far. His family was extremely important to him, and he was a regular visit to us wherever we lived, especially at Christmas. He would be awake early, probably a hangover from his Stormont days, and would sit in a chair, dressed in a bright Hawaiian shirt, drinking a strong cup of tea. He would watch TV with the children, especially Cool Runnings, and this became a real popular feature with Matthew and Beth. And it is indeed a wonderful film. At one stage, he bought a red Skoda. It was imported into the UK. He was really pleased with this car, and he offered lifts to the family on a regular basis. And one day he disappeared with Jenny, our eldest daughter, to get to Hay-on-Wye, a bookshop paradise, before the rest of the family woke up. Another time he offered a lift to Joanna and her friend so they could get to a nightclub. They asked Andy if they could be dropped around the corner, as arriving in a Skoda was not their scene. Funny, as they were greeted by a Yorkshire lad that evening, whose opening gambit was, "Can you cook?" followed by, "Can you drive a tractor?" Andrew's red Skoda would have fitted perfectly into that. Later in life, religion clearly became very important to Andy, and as Father Gregory told me, he was very religious and wouldn't miss a service here. This may have started by accident, but I think not. He used to bring a friend, Pamela, to church on Sundays and would wait for her outside, but finally realized it was far better to be inside, especially as there was a cup of tea afterwards. This church and his life in this church has been very important to him, and we thank you all for that. But we should have suspected that he was religious, as he always wanted to go to midnight service when he was with us at Christmas. And one Christmas, when we were in deep rural Herefordshire, he wanted to go, and there was a foot of snow outside, but he made me get the four-wheel drive going so we could go down a steep hill and arrive there, and which we did, and it was a very good service. The vicar was amazed that we were there, and so was I. Recently, ill health and lockdown impacted on Andrew, and he couldn't do the things that he really enjoyed doing. He couldn't travel by train, but he could still enjoy the beach hut and meeting his friends whenever he could. In fact, he was far iller than any of us knew he was. Andrew was the most wonderful of people, the archetype of a public servant. He had no bad words to say of anyone, and he would help all and give his time and advice freely. We will all miss him so much. Thank you.